Okay, my name is Pepijn Zurburg. I'm a graphic designer from the Netherlands, from Amsterdam. I've been working with my partner Richard for many years now. We met in art school, and we've been working on in a graphic design studio called the Designpolitie, Design Police. And since about 10 or 11 years, we also work on a foundation that is called What Design Can Do.
No, but that's the whole thing. We have been working together, of course, already for 27 years. And we started straight from art school. In fact, already in art school in Utrecht. And after we graduated, we also went to the Sandberg Institute. By the way, we never finished that, but it was also, I think, the second year of their existence that we studied there. Now, I think maybe it's also good to in addition to what Pepijn says, what we have always liked to do is next to our work in art school and also when we were professional designers, we always liked to do things on the side. So we were always, as I would like to frame it now, we have always been initiators. So when I look at myself, in art school I already organized parties or exhibitions, and when we started working together, at a certain moment we also did a magazine together with some writers and artists. And that really sort of kept on going on throughout our career as designers. And you could say that What Design Can Do, that is one of the big things that we're doing right now, is one of those self-initiated projects. But this time it got completely out of hand. So now it's an organization with people working there, and we are also active not only here in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, but also in Mexico City, in Sao Paulo, in Nairobi, in Delhi, and in Tokyo. So it started as a self-initiated project next to our graphic design studio, and you could now almost say that it's the other way around, because for us, What Design Can Do is now so dominant and so important. But I think what's always so nice about it is that we keep on approaching it as designers or as creatives or creative directors. So that's also, of course, how Pepijn and I always introduce ourselves. We are the creative directors of What Design Can Do, the Design Police. And of course, also one of the big things that we have been doing now for years is Gorilla. That's this visual column that we have been doing in a Dutch newspaper called the Volkskrant and a Dutch weekly magazine called Groene Amsterdammer. Always very dear to us, really beautiful initiative, I think. Now, indeed, to start with the beginning, it started as a project next to our designpolitie work. And you can look at it from different sides. You could say we do it because we think design is so important to solve the issues of our times. Yes, that's true. Next to that, we are also makers. So we always look for opportunities to make stuff, to make it very flat. So that's also how it started. We created this project to create something in terms of making a campaign, making an identity, a website, and of course also creating this event. So it started as a big conference in the municipal theater in Amsterdam. Nowadays it's an organization operating in different countries. In fact, we want to mobilize a global creative community, and what we do is supporting, igniting and accelerating creative innovation, so to say. So we focus on the power of design in solving big issues like climate change, and we narrow that down into specific topics like the waste crisis. At this moment we are focusing on circular design, so it's a big challenge program around circularity. And that's the core of what we do. So we focus on designers and creative entrepreneurs, and we want to support them help them and bring them to the next stage so that they can have real impact with the power of creativity on those big, huge issues that we have to focus on today. Now, of course, that is we have a big focus on climate change, or as we say, climate action. And that's also one of those sustainable development goals, climate action. And I think it's also really closely related to design and designers, because designers are people who want to do something, want to make things. It can be a tangible thing, but it can of course also be a system or a service, that doesn't matter, but you want to create something and bring things in motion. So in that sense, we think that it fits very well with the mindset of designers. And in that whole thing, we think that issues like circularity and things like the waste crisis are very important. Very important for us to focus on, because that's an area where design can really make a difference. And if we design in a better way our products and services, then will also result into less waste and to products that last longer, that you maybe can use again. There is no waste, you can reuse, repurpose. Those are all very big design issues. And yes, if we are able to tackle them in some kind of a way, then we think that is the contribution that designers can deliver. Now, I can of course give you an example of one of our big examples. You have a Dutch designer called Bas van Abel. He created the Fairphone, and the Fairphone is a phone that is fair. And the whole idea behind the Fairphone is that you can open it and repair it. And nowadays, when you buy a product, whether it's a phone or a toaster, if it's broken down and you open it, you can never go back to the shop and change it or bring it back. As soon as you open the product, it's sort of hoe zeg je dat nou in het Engels?
You lose the warranty.
You lose the warranty, exactly. And Bas van Abel, with his Fairphone, he changed that whole idea. So he created a phone that you can change, you can alter, you can repair, you can add things. That's really important, next to the fact that he also really wants to make it fair, in the sense that he wants to that Fairphone works with people and organizations that are sustainable, that have a good policy on the people they work with, etc., etc. So he wants to really make the whole chain sustainable and fair. So I think that's a great example of how you approach a product and a system as a designer. In our No Waste Challenge, we also had some, of course, amazing winners. I think one of them is a good example because it also is so imaginative. And that's Bob Hendricks. He created the living coffin. So that's a coffin made out of mycelium. So it's a growing material. Mycelium is a sort of a fungi, and you can cast it, and it grows, and it's a very tough, hard material. So you can grow a coffin, and when a body is buried in that coffin, the coffin and the body will disappear in 35 days without leaving a trace. So you could also say that's a sort of regenerative design. It becomes part of nature again. And what I also really like about this project is that, first of all, it's well thought of. It's really circular, but it also gives a new perspective on death. And I think that in our society, there's still a bit of a taboo on death and how you deal with death and how you talk about death. And in other cultures, and that's much more part of life. And here in Western societies, people want to push it away. And with this project, you also suddenly start talking and thinking in a different way about death and how it is connected with nature and the world we live in.
Yeah, well, of course, the projects or startups that enter their projects into our challenge competition, they're quite young usually. So they are in the early stages of development. But some of them have made quite significant steps, and we try to track them over a period of time, over a couple of years, to really see how are you progressing. Are you able to take the next step? Are you able to grow your staff or grow your business or attract new investments or funding, things like that. And there are also projects that are now in the early stages of going to market, bringing their product to market, etc. So, and there are, I think many examples of projects that are sort of happening now in real life. I mean, you had a fantastic project from Brazil. It was called Perivela. In essence, it was like a bike messenger service, which maybe here is not so revolutionary, but in the Sao Paulo context, that's really like, it's almost like a protest movement, bringing parcels around on bike. Yeah, they're doing it. They have grown their business out of it. And there's also a project that has recently been launched. The Mapu speakers.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful product where artisanal crafts, pottery, is matched with high-tech electronics to make a sort of a renewable, recyclable project that is a speaker set. It looks wonderful, but it's also completely, you can take it after its life cycle, you can take it apart and reuse it again. And they have been testing and prototyping, and now they are on the market. They're it's in a sense, it is a column. So it's not a cartoon, because it's also not always funny. But it's a column in a sense that we work with two other designers, so we're a collective of 4. And we choose our own topics. And we just submit whatever we want to say about those topics. In that sense, it's really a column. So I think when we published in the Volkskrant, I think 1 or 2 times there was a bit of controversy over what we submitted, because the editors thought it was, I don't know, about the royal house. Is it called the royal house?
That was quite funny. That it was indeed about
the Dutch monarch.
The Dutch monarch, the Queen, and in that time the Prince Willem-Alexander.
Yeah. And the editor-in-chief had very good relations with the Dutch royals and so on. So they asked us to tone it down a bit, which was a bit weird. But in the Groene, never. Yeah, also because I think we are not really extremists, so we don't sort of have one extreme left or right or sort of opinion. We always try to see the news at face value, and usually there's something not fair, not honest. A politician is not being honest. A country is saying this but meaning that, or sugarcoating or window dressing an issue, and then you can just sort of most of the time just flip it and show the other side, and that is something that you can do very effectively in visuals.
But it's a lot, of course. I think more than 1,000. I don't know. To be honest, I really don't know.
Yeah, well, we started for the first years every day, so
that went very fast.
That were like 300 a year or so, and but we've been doing this.
And we have way more than 1,000.
Yeah. I don't know. We've been doing it since 2006, so I don't know. A couple of thousand, I would say. Also, we try to keep track on it of them on a website, but we're always behind. So I really wouldn't know.
What is nice is that sometimes you see that a gorilla that we made is suddenly disconnected from the news of the day. So suddenly it has sort of an eternal value, so to say, and then you suddenly see the strength of the image, so that you can use it, that you can still appreciate the gorilla that we made 3 years ago, because it is about a specific value or about a specific topic that has a longer time span than just what's happening in that week. And so we sometimes make that. You don't do that on purpose, it just happens. And then afterwards you see from, hey, this is something about social injustice, or this is something, this is a very interesting statement about climate change, or this is an interesting statement about consumerism, or this is really an interesting statement about the relation between the United States and the Arab world, or etc., etc. And then suddenly this gorilla stands out and gets some kind of an eternal value. That is of course super nice, but on the other hand, we really make it to give a comment on what's happening in the news. So that in fact those things are two different values that a gorilla can have. It should work on the moment that you make it. And if next to that it also has a bigger value, then that's of course a very exciting thing to see, but you always see that afterwards. You never see that at the moment itself.
Yeah, and I think also in general the ones that are sort of pretty simple, they age the best.
Sure.
Always the ones where you really have been, this was so intelligent and I made such a nice illustration. After a while you just think, that was that.
Yeah. Yes, of course. It would be a bit sad if there was no development in 27 years. But I think that in that sense it changed. On one hand, it's still the same. I dare to say that we always have been very engaged as a designer. How do we position ourselves? What is our relation to what's happening in society? But I also do think, but that's really, I think, a matter of age and experience and etc., is that in first instance you're very almost monotonous working on specific projects. And I think that nowadays, and that also has to do with the fact that we have been working on what design can do and something like Gorilla, is that I think nowadays we are much more aware of indeed what's happening in society and how can we contribute to that, where in the beginning we were also really focusing on what is our statements, what is it. So it was more it was also ego driven, which I think is important for designers and for people who create. That's always very important to also let your ego speak, so to say, because that also makes the statement, gives your work a personal identity, which I think is important. But I think it's also really, for us nowadays, really important that we pay some kind of contribution to what's happening in society. And we do that with Gorilla as a commentators, to make visual comments. And I think with what design can do, by really trying to help other designers and advocate the power of design, bringing the message across, etc., etc. So that's a different perspective. So in that sense it changed, but the core is still that engagement that we have. Anything to add? Do you agree?
No, I was contemplating to maybe talk about how the landscape of graphic design has changed, but I don't know if I want
also true.
dare to go into that. It has changed in 27 years, but it's also because we changed, I guess. But I mean, the areas of where graphic design was sort of super important and happening, where we at least thought, this is really where the magic happens, they have sort of gone or disappeared, and then graphic design has moved on to other areas of, let's say the visual communication landscape. For instance, there was a time in Holland, or in Amsterdam maybe, when theater posters were really a thing. So the best graphic design was made in, amongst other things, in theater posters. Yet that has sort of gone. There's still theater posters being made, but I don't think they're sort of there at the forefront of what's new and exciting and spearheading graphic design innovation or something. The same with stamps. Stamps was for many years, it was like the nec plus ultra to make a stamp as a graphic designer. Maybe it still is, but I also think it has become, I don't know.
They hardly exist anymore.
Yeah, they hardly exist anymore, but and the ones that I see are, there's still graphic design on them. I'm sure graphic designers have gone to great lengths to make them pretty or nice or exciting, but I don't know. So there are other areas where graphic design is, and sometimes things come back, and sometimes, I don't know, niches pop up, but as a whole, it's sort of changed, I think. And I think also we were really focused on graphic design, but we were always really aware of, we have this thing, we make this book, we make this poster, we make this stamp, but that's that thing, but what does it actually do? What can we do with it? How can we change an opinion or provoke a reaction or, I don't know, do something? We always were sort of aware of that, and that is something that maybe hasn't changed. Well, quite literally, we're now working in this what design can do organization, which is not so much about what we make of it design-wise, but actually what it does, what it can do for society. Maybe that's the thing that has stayed the same.
Not so long ago we wrote an opinion editorial about, in fact, that specific issue. That when you talk about climate change, governments tend to focus on citizens or consumers or whatever how you want to frame them. And so here in the Netherlands you even have a slogan: "Een beter milieu begint bij jezelf," means a better environment starts with yourself. And that has annoyed me already for 20 years, I think, but because it really says that we as a government are not responsible, but you as a citizen, you can do it. But all the numbers show that 50% of all the pollution and all the activities that are responsible for climate change are created by big industry. 50% of everything. So that means that the other 50% goes to indeed customers, citizens, and you name it. But 50% is the heavy industry. So it should be the government and those big companies who should accelerate that change, instead of constantly bringing it back to citizens who have a very little, not only responsibility, but also really little, very small avenue to walk on, because you live in a certain system that is not sustainable, that is linear, etc., etc. So it's extremely difficult for us as citizens to really make that change happen if governments and big companies do not pave the way. And so our statement was also government and big industry, you really have to stand up and make that change happen. And we, as a design industry, can help you with that. We can make the campaigns, we can make the products that are sustainable and circular, but you as a government have to make the legislation and the policy, and you as big companies have to create the environment and the factories and the systems to make designers and engineers, etc., able to make those products and services that can create this better system or this better world. And as long as that's not happening, it can indeed sometimes feel a bit cynical that we, as What Design Can Do, or all those other organizations that want to make a difference, are sort of doing that alone, or with the support of some governmental money, or with the support of some foundations, etc., etc. But the real big systemic changes has to come from those two parties.